and welcome to the new thing I'm going to be trying to do from now on, partly because people are actually supporting me on Patreon and Ko-fi, and I kind of feel like I'm needing to give you something more in return than just chaos, photos of chaos and updates. So I am going to attempt to do a bi-weekly video. But I'm pansexual, so shouldn't that be a pan-weekly video? So my big thing for the year 2021 is that I'm going to be doing my 12 months of cosplay challenge. I did a 30-day challenge last November where I put up a photo every day of a different costume. And this year I want to go one better, and every month I'm going to make a cosplay. Now I've already done January's, which was Icarus. Insert photo here and link to videos. So currently my February project is Lucian the Nonagon from Critical Role. But I've only got a few more on my list, so at some point if you back me on Ko-fi or Patreon, then you will get to put in suggestions and vote for what else I'm going to do. So at the end of every month I'm going to have a complete cosplay vlog video of how I made that and the whole process from start to finish, which I will then put up for all you guys to see. If you are supporting me on Ko-fi or Patreon, then you will get to see it early. You will also see sneak peeks of what I'm actually doing. You'll get updates and photos of the dog, which obviously is why you should support me on Ko-fi and Patreon, because dog photos. It's super important to me that anyone who backs me and supports me in any way at all, and even people who just, you know, like and follow these videos, which is insane, that you actually get something out of them. So, yeah, I'm going to be working on that. That being said, what is this video going to be about? Well, this video is going to be about Mollymauk Tealeaf, funnily enough, but it's going to be about what Hogwarts House he might be sorted into. I'm going to try not to let any of my own personal biases show through here. Whenever I take the sorting test, I get pretty much 50-50 Hufflepuff and Slytherin. I've always thought of myself as a Hufflepuff, mostly because they're the underdogs and I always root for the underdog and no one else wanted them, which made me go, well, I want them even more now, gimme. So I was always a Badger. However, there is a huge chunk of me that really does admit that I am kind of Slytherin. But overall, as said in the books, I think the sorting hat does take your own personal preference into account when it's making the decision. So ultimately, I probably would end up in Hufflepuff, but if I ended up in Slytherin, absolutely fine by me. So first off, I'm going to do the same thing I did on TikTok. I'm going to take you through each house in turn and talk about what they are all about and how Molly would slot into them. So we're going to do Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, and then Slytherin. And then at the very end, I'm going to get you guys to chat in the comments with me and we will decide which one we think fits him the best. So, starting with Gryffindor. Wait, do I have some sort of hat? Wait. How am I a cosplayer with no witch's hat? Oh man, this is embarrassing. Alright, I might just wear my robes for the rest of the video. I'm going to talk about these real quick though. These are one of the best things that I own. These are my school robes from Bothwell School of Witchcraft. Bothwell School of Witchcraft is an amazing LARP event in the UK. You get to go to a castle, which is a magic school, over 3 days. I may do an entire video about Bothwell at some point. Tell me down in the comments if you're actually interested in hearing an entire video about that. Okay, I'm back. They even have hoods. Yeah, so whenever people ask me about like where I went to school, this is what I say, because my high school was like fine, but this school was better. This is to complete the look. Yeah, this is my house. Tab 1. Yes. So, this will be me for the rest of this video. You might belong in Gryffindor, where dwell the brave at heart. Their daring, nerve, and chivalry set Gryffindors apart. Alright, so obviously, right off the bat, Mollymauk Tealeaf is brave. Obviously, I think most members of the Mighty Nine are brave. He isn't afraid of a fight. He died fighting, saving and protecting his friends. There is no question that he is brave. He is definitely daring. He doesn't get nervous or self-conscious if somebody is rude to him. He doesn't get worried about what other people are going to think. His nerve holds up throughout the entire thing and never wavers. Chivalry is an interesting one. Now, Molly is no White Knight. He would probably not be invited to wear the White Knight armour and work for some king, but he probably would also not want to. So in terms of being chivalrous and having chivalry, I think you could argue Molly does have it, but in a very different way. Justice also seems to be another thing that's associated with chivalry, and although shown in moments, particularly when he was dealing with, say, the bandits, he was very forgiving of them, and he showed a kindness and a sort of sense of justice there when, instead of killing them all or leaving them to starve, he gave them all money and gave them another chance. Although that's not necessarily what your average chivalrous knight would have done. But then again, we're not talking about chivalrous knights, we are talking about Gryffindor. And Gryffindors tend to incorporate all of these together. The bravery, the nerve, the chivalry, and the daring. Which, so far, I think Molly does have. Another interesting point about Gryffindor is that they can be considered to be brave to the point of recklessness. Reckless. Yeah, it's Molly. It's part of his charm. It's one of the reasons why I love him so much. Molly is definitely reckless. And in a way, that also contributed to why he died. He was being brave, he was trying to protect and rescue his friends, but he was also being slightly reckless. And ultimately, that time, it didn't work out. Insert me crying about Molly dying yet again. The last thing I'm going to talk about in terms of Gryffindor is that in terms of other people, they can be regarded as slightly self-righteous and arrogant. Now, again, this does sound like Molly. But once more, I'm having to look at it in a slightly different way. Similarly to how people would be described as chivalrous, Molly's arrogance is not how you would immediately picture it when you think of the word. So the arrogance is definitely leaned into, but it's always with a sense of fun. He is always willing to be the butt of a joke. He is always willing to make a complete fool of himself. He is always bedazzling, and he knows it. So, to wrap up Gryffindor, we have got brave, including all the way to his death. We've got holding his nerve. We have got chivalry to a certain point, and we have got daring. So Molly could definitely be a Gryffindor. But we have 3 more houses yet to go, Jelly Spoons, so we're going to talk about them first before we make a decision. He may well fit in another house better. It's warm, I've had the heating on all day. Well, I've been writing my Lucian fic and doing my Lucian trousers. It's been a whole Lucian day. I'm very warm. I'm sorry the robe has had to come off, but I am keeping the Bodwell scarf because it's my favourite. And I wear it in the summer anyway. All right, so, okay, Jelly Spoons, I'm going to have to ask you to bear with me on this one. I'm about to explain why the carnival man who cannot read may belong in Ravenclaw. Or yet in wise old Ravenclaw, if you've a ready mind, where those of wit and learning will always find their kind. Now, right off the bat, most people tend to assume that Ravenclaw is just a house for people who are boffins or smart or ridiculously clever. My sister's a Ravenclaw, I love her very much. However, this is not entirely true. By talking about learning and having a ready mind, they don't literally mean that you just have to be smart. It actually runs way deeper than that. Let me explain. The main characteristics of those who are sorted into Ravenclaw are wit, learning, and wisdom. Well, one of the interesting things about Ravenclaw is that they pride themselves in being original in their ideas. And it's not unusual to find Ravenclaws practicing things that other people wouldn't necessarily think of. This is starting to sound a lot more like the lavender tiefling we all know and love. Another super interesting thing about Ravenclaws is that they are often described as dismissing lots of social norms in favour of pursuing their own curiosities. Now, once again, it was like that sentence was written for Mollymauk Tealeaf, okay? It's not just about book smarts and passing exams or even knowing how to read, thank God Molly. It's about having the creativity and the imagination to bring your ideas into the world, about pursuing things that you want to do, and despite what others may say, still having the curiosity and your own ideas to follow them through. Wit is another big one, and I mean, yeah, Molly's witty. What else can we say? The last little thing I will say about Ravenclaw as a house is that wisdom as a word is often associated with them, and let's face it, Molly's wisdom was a 16. And the wisdom is where the creative curiosity in this case is coming from. So yeah, Molly as a Ravenclaw. What do we think? Comment down below if you're still with me. 2 more houses to go, Jelly Spoons. Okay, I left these till last because now I get to talk about my 2 favourite houses. Yeah. That's the worst dance I've ever done in my life. Moving on. So, Hufflepuff. Alright, first off, I am not going to let my own biases about this house affect my decision. You might belong in Hufflepuff, where they are just and loyal. Those patient Hufflepuffs are true and unafraid of toil. Okay, I'm going to address the first thing here, patience. I don't think we could realistically call Molly a very patient character. I mean, I'm not very patient either, so I can relate. But he's not so impatient that it immediately cuts him out of this house entirely. He is capable of it, it's just not his main thing. However, he is definitely just and loyal. Sorry to keep bringing up how he died again, but it is a tremendous example, not just of his Gryffindor bravery and stuff, but it is a great example of how he is just and loyal towards his friends. He didn't just abandon his kidnapped friends to go and be taken off to goodness knows where. He agreed to go hunt the guy down and get them back. Being just also plays back into that slight note of chivalry as well with Molly's justice. He was just, again, in a Hufflepuff way, when he gave the gold pieces to those bandits and gave them a second chance. I think that's a big thing to do with Hufflepuff that Molly definitely incorporates. He is willing to give anyone a chance. He is willing to speak to anyone and everyone. Even the people who are outright rude to him just because he's a tiefling. He'll still chat to them, he would still give them a smile. He never goes after them, he isn't vindictive. And unafraid of toil. Now, Mollymauk is definitely unafraid of working hard as well. Whether they are sleeping rough on the road, whether they're living in luxury, ordering fruit platters, treating himself as a god, wrapping himself in a tapestry, and boning companions, Mollymauk is completely adaptable to any person, place, or situation. And I think that is a very Hufflepuff way to be. Hufflepuff, particularly its founder Helga Hufflepuff, is very much described as being one of the more inclusive houses at Hogwarts. Rather than looking for specific traits like bravery, cunning, or wisdom, Helga Hufflepuff just took anyone and everyone who wants to be there. And I think this is a key part of why Mollymauk does suit Hufflepuff. I would argue that Mollymauk Tealeaf is possibly the most inclusive member of the Mighty Nine. And I don't just mean in terms of his own gender and sexuality. I mean in terms of how he treats everybody else. As I mentioned before, anybody and everybody is given a chance with Molly. He loves to have fun and engage with just about anyone, from giving tarot readings to uncertain people who he does still end up helping, all the way up to horrifically cruel slavers like Lorenzo, who Molly was not afraid to stand up to, backchat, and spit blood in the face of, even when he was dying. Insert me crying over Molly being dead, just again. And everybody in between. Molly doesn't care who you are, where you've come from, what you identify as. I think he would chat, have a drink, play a game of cards with anyone and everyone. And because he's so inclusive and would allow anyone and everyone into his world, I think that is possibly the most Hufflepuff thing about him. It's not just kindness, it's genuinely being open. But we will see at the end when we make decisions. Hello Jelly Spoons, I am back talking about Slytherin, taking it totally seriously. Perhaps in Slytherin you'll make your real friends. Those cunning folk use any means to achieve their ends. Alright, so Slytherin. First off, we have some Slytherin racism to deal with because, everybody say it together, not everyone in Slytherin is evil. Belonging in Slytherin does not require you to A, be evil, B, be on the path ready to becoming evil, or C, make you a cruel, horrible person. Okay, so, cunning. This is a massive word associated with Slytherin House beyond perhaps anything else. Now the real question is, does Mollymauk have cunning? Is Mollymauk a cunning person? Yes. To keep things equal, I'm going to use some of the same examples I used when talking about other houses, namely when Molly does his tarot readings, how he behaved with the bandits, his death, and the whole escapade with getting into and out of that hospital. So using his tarot readings as an example, Molly is definitely cunning. It's been explained that he isn't using magic, he's using trickery. Molly is basically Darren Brown. I'm actually just taking a time out to think about Molly and Darren Brown meeting. That would be amazing. I want to see that. Molly isn't using magic to make the cards work. He's simply using trickery, sleight of hand, and suggestion. He uses his cunning to influence the cards and to give people the readings that they want, or, more importantly, that they need. One memorable guy he gave a card reading to was talking about how he had a medical condition that he hadn't been to the doctor about yet, and Molly managed to convince him to do so, saying that the cards were advising that you should take a trip to the doctor. And the man thought, yes, I'll go do that. And while it was funny, it was still Molly using his cunning to trick somebody into doing ultimately something that may have saved his life. Cunning once again rears its head when Molly was doing the whole escapade with the hospital. While we were all laughing at him painting his junk and doing God knows what else with breakfast food, what was actually happening was Molly was demonstrating just how cunning his mind was. He was thinking several steps ahead, far beyond the Gryffindor recklessness of bowling on in. He had a plan. He not only had one plan, he had backup plans. He had a plan for if somebody got a hold of him and wanted to actually have a look at what was ailing him. He had also thought about ways he could get people away from him, and he had also thought about what he could do to not only appear more convincing as a sick person, but how he could use that to his advantage to manipulate the situation. Very cunning and ultimately hilarious. Also, Jelly Spoon's just taking this opportunity once again to point out the fact that cunning does not mean evil. Now, onto the idea of using any means to achieve their ends. While Molly probably wouldn't take this to the extreme, I think he definitely supports the idea of thinking. And again, I'm going to use the example of how he died. He thought that it was worth using any means, including giving up his own life, to attempt to rescue his friends. Other characteristics favoured by Slytherin are leadership, resourcefulness, and ambition. Now, Molly has definitely taken moments to show his leadership. He's not the leader of the Mighty Nine, and I don't think he would want to be the outright leader either. He's much more happy to take a back seat, speak up when necessary, and see where the ride takes him. However, good leadership is sometimes knowing where you're best. It doesn't always mean putting yourself at the front and making yourself the captain of the ship. Although that would be cool, Molly in a captain's hat. Side note. Really good leadership is about knowing your own strengths and weaknesses and those of everybody else. Molly knows that he's not necessarily best as the group leader, so therefore he isn't. He did take charge in certain things though, particularly when it involved the carnival. He definitely took a leadership role when they were rescuing Toya. He carried her all the way back. He took charge of that. And that was an important moment for him. That was a moment that he wanted to be in charge. He wanted to take that role, and he did. Resourcefulness is a total no-brainer. Mollymauk definitely has this. He pulled himself out of the dirt with no memory, no name, joined a circus and grew up on the road travelling for 2 years learning how to exist as a person. He definitely has resourcefulness. The idea of ambition is where I start to fall down a little bit in terms of Molly being a Slytherin. Not because I don't think Molly has ambition, just that I don't think it's as important to him. His ambitions aren't massive, like I want to be the right hand of my deity, I want to build my own church, I want to have discovered the cure for this disease. His are much smaller, but they are still there. He wants to travel the world, he wants to experience different things, he wants to meet people, he wants to enjoy himself. Those are still ambitions, perfectly valid ones as well. But they're not as driven, say, as the hardcore ones like, I want to be a senator before I'm 30, that kind of thing. The last thing I will talk about in terms of Mollymauk and Slytherin is the fact that he faces the same sort of prejudice that the Slytherins do. Oh, you are this, therefore you must be evil. You are a Slytherin, therefore you must be evil. You're a tiefling, therefore you must be evil. Mollymauk has this in twofold. Partly because of what he is. He's a tiefling. It's shown throughout the campaign that a lot of NPCs and a lot of other people Molly has met have regarded him as evil or less than just because he has horns and a tail. And then there's the Lucian part of all this. Molly worked hard to see himself as completely separate from whoever this person was before him. And when he encounters people like Kree or the Mighty Nine in their zone of truth start asking him questions about it, he doesn't want to know. He wants that degree of separation. He doesn't believe that he should be seen as a potentially evil body that he inhabits. He gets to be different. He gets to be more than that. So I think that overall, Mollymauk does fit as a Slytherin as well, which does make the next bit all the harder. All right. Come on then, Jelly Spoons, let's make a decision. Alright, so we've made it. We're at the very end of this video discussing what house Mollymauk Tealeaf could possibly be in. I don't know about you, but I am actually nowhere closer to a decision. We have got 4 wonderful Hogwarts houses here, and any one of them Molly could absolutely fit into and be delighted to do so. But how do we decide which house we think he would end up in overall? Well, there's 2 major things I'm going to use to make my decision. One would be the thing that stands out the most about you as a person, the thing that overrides everything else and would be your more defining character trait. 2 is your own decision, so we can try and guess what Molly's preference might be. Feel free to put me in a house in the comments below as well based on what you know of me. Go for it. So first we had Gryffindor. Molly definitely fits all these attributes. He is brave, will help others, and he has a sense of justice. Then we had the unlikely contender, Ravenclaw. Now, despite him not being able to read, Mollymauk still 100% fits here. He expresses himself creatively, he is unafraid to take risks no matter what other people say, and his wisdom is super high. Next we had Hufflepuff, and again Molly fits this as well. He's loyal to his friends, he has a beautiful sense of justice, and of course he's ridiculously inclusive of others. Lastly, we had Slytherin. Now, Molly has also had to face the Slytherin prejudice of being considered evil. He has a great amount of cunning and is willing to see things through to the end, even at the cost of his own life. Alright, so he definitely fits in pretty much any and every house. So what do we think Molly would want? Part of me thinks he might be initially drawn to Gryffindor because of their house table. They're usually the most boisterous, they'd probably seem full of life to Molly, and there's definitely an air of cool about them as well. But then again, Molly does like the strange and the weird and the unusual, so he may be drawn to the oddities of, say, Hufflepuff or Slytherin, being the houses that people either don't think very much of, that he would want to flamboyantly prove was incorrect, or even something like Slytherin, where he can lean into that, yeah, you think I'm evil? Well. And then again, you've got Ravenclaw with a hint of the unexpected. He might lean towards that so that he can surprise people by possibly being the only Ravenclaw in existence to never learn to read. So once again, ultimately, I'm very unsure. I think what I might do is do myself a lucky dip. So, jelly spoons, which house is Mollymauk Tealeaf going to be in? All right, let's just muddle these up. Did I drop one? Okay. Okay, right. Keep muddling. Keep muddling. All right. I'm not licking. There's no mirror on my ceiling, I promise. Okay, so I'm still muddling these. All right. I'm going to continue to muddle them behind my back, and I'm going to pick one. All right. How shall I decide when to stop? I don't need to maledict. I could blind you with rage. Did Jester write your story? You're a dick on every page. You're a fiend, Caleb. So let me switch to Devil's Tongue. I can't say the rest of those words on YouTube. I've won. All right. I've got one in my hand. Mollymauk is a Slytherin. Right. Well, I'm not disappointed, I have to say. I am not disappointed. I will go with it. I will happily argue for any and every house, but yeah, in the luck of the draw, Molly got Slytherin. So thank you so much, Jelly Spoons, for joining me once again today as I twaddle through a bunch of chaos. You can expect plenty more from me, and as I said, I am going to be doing a bi-weekly video now of absolute nonsense. You guys, if you have any requests of things you would like me to talk about, please throw them in the comments because I love having ideas. I will tend to just bounce around and talk about whatever I'm thinking about at the time, which may or may not be interesting to you guys. Also, if you would like to come and support me on Patreon or Ko-fi, then you can get loads of bonus rewards, and I will make sure that you see these videos extra early, which, you know, who wouldn't want that? Also, if you do become a monthly supporter on Patreon, you will get to see not only behind the scenes craziness of me, I also get you guys to help me decide what I am doing. Just the other day, I had people who helped me to decide what colour to have Lucian's cloak be and stuff like that. And you will get behind the scenes dog photos as well. I cannot describe how much this dog helps move the creative process. So, discuss down in the comments, which house do you think Mollymauk Tealeaf belongs in? Do you think he is a Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, or a Slytherin? And tell me your houses as well. What Hogwarts house do you belong in and why? What is your favourite? And where do you think Mollymauk Tealeaf would go? I'm amazed that you have stuck around to the end of this video. I love you all so much. Goodbye, jelly spoons. Goodbye!